When I started out, environmental action was perceived as obstructionism. It started off with being called a lo aa gayi activist. I was mocked at and ridiculed. And the industry was quite patriarchal when I started out. The attitude towards a thinking woman, and especially one who has ideas and views, was not very welcoming. People's opinions have never really shaken me, shaken my spirit. When I started working in cinema in the early 2000s on a film set, the maximum number of women we would have would be my hairdresser and me. It was a time where women were not even allowed to do makeup. Maddie and I were blown away by the kind of videos we saw. We will not even attempt a sequel unless the story is strong enough. It has to be.
Hello and welcome to News 18 Shosha. Today we have with us the very beautiful, the very gorgeous and the talented Diya Mirza with us. Thank you so much, Diya, for joining us on News 18.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yes. Diya, you are coming back from London. First thing first, you received the Wildlife Advocate of the Year award. How do you feel?
It's wonderful. It's, 2 decades of just learning, discovering and growing as a human being, advocating for wildlife and forest rights. And I feel like this award is in a way just an acknowledgement of that, that effort for the last 2 decades. But I hope it inspires more people to become advocates for the wild and to participate in this very necessary and important work.
Right. Diya, speaking of wildlife and for environment, you are an ambassador for global environment, if I may say so, from our country as well. But today we are at the India Cleanup Conference 2024. Can you just talk about your association with them and for how long have you been with them for so far?
I'm really proud that Green Mina and Carter Cleanup have come together to initiate this cleanup confluence. It's actually a beautiful word that they've coined it with, because when we speak of a confluence, we talk about a merging of, a coming together of. And really, I think the cleanup movement in India has gathered such momentum and there's such extraordinary work happening, but it's happening in silos. And the effort of this confluence was to bring these amazing human beings from across the country, largely youth-based organizations that are doing this remarkable work, bring them under one roof, hear them out, hear what their challenges are, provide them with the latest solutions, give them access to whoever they need more access to, and celebrate them. Really.
Yeah, it's been a 2-decade journey, like you mentioned as well. What changes have you seen so far in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the mentality of the people, or the way people are receiving environmental, safety, or at least the awareness bit of it? What things have changed in these 20 years?
When I started out, environmental action was perceived as obstructionism.
Okay.
I think today more and more people recognize how environmental action is the best example of patriotism, right? Because when you work for the health and the betterment of the health of the environment, you're actually working for all social issues.
Right.
Because a healthy environment means healthy people, peace, progress, and climate action is the defining area of our work for us, because with everything that's happening to the climate and the kind of crisis it's causing and the catastrophe it's causing, whether it is the intensity and the frequency of flash floods, forest fires, drought, and the kind of stress it's putting. I'll give you a simple example. There was a driver, a taxi driver, who was collecting money over years to build a house, a pakka house for his mother in the village. So he collected this money over the years. He built the village, the house in the village. And as soon as the house was built, there were flash floods in his village and his house got washed away. Now, that is the kind of impact climate has on people,
Right.
and especially the most marginalized. We live in urban centers, we have the privilege and the luxury of many amenities and comforts, but even that comes at a cost. We are
True.
also breathing polluted air. We are also dealing with this ridiculous quantum of waste that we are generating. 9,000 metric tons only in Bombay,
Exactly.
right?
It's not true.
So if all of us can find ways to be a part of the solution, and more than anything else, just recognize that everything that we need, everything that we have is coming from the earth, and
Right.
we need to be more respectful to the earth.
Definitely.
We'll find ways to do better, whether it's carrying our own bottle or making sure we're
Yes.
switching off the mains on power supply when we leave a room, or doing simple things like refusing single-use plastics.
Yes, no doubt. No, you very beautifully coined it as, obstructionism to patriotism.
Yeah.
It's not an easy journey, right? What were your challenges per se, despite being a famous figure, despite being a celebrity figure, having the
It
influence?
started off with being called a "Lo aa gayi" activist. I was mocked at and ridiculed because that's another thing, right? In a patriarchal setup, and the industry was quite patriarchal when I started out. The attitude towards a thinking woman, and especially one who has ideas and views, was not very welcoming. And I see a big shift
You see
in that
okay.
mindset. I think there are more and more women who are becoming a part of solutions, who are voicing their opinions and are actually bringing about big change. And for me, I think at a personal level, I've always been a part of a movement which is unpopular. Today it's become more woke. It's good to see more young actors, especially actresses, getting involved with work in climate action and animal advocacy, wildlife advocacy. And it's wonderful. It's strengthening because, I was a minority.
I understand
And
that.
hopefully one day I will be a part of a very big majority.
Very true, very true. I think we're on the right track as well for that, if I may say so. Dia, when you started off, like you said, and what would you deem or what would you think that, okay, fine, this is something that I've achieved? When you see a certain change, what will you deem as success? So, chalo, what we started off has finally paid for. What would that moment be for you? Or what would that criteria be for you when you feel that kind of content of what you've done?
I feel a great sense of success and validation when I see young people come up to me and say, I saw you carrying your bottle and now I carry my own metal bottle. Or they say that, we follow you on Instagram and social media and we love what you do. And we started segregating waste at home. I'm working with my school to improve more engagement and activities around environmental action. And it's not... The biggest thing is to see young people kind of reinforce the values that one has been trying to share and the stories one has been sharing.
Right.
And it's wonderful to see that so many more people are inspired by those stories.
No doubt. You also mentioned that you keep posting on social media, which you also did in your recent visit to London. You were refilling your bottle and we saw that. It was quite inspirational as well. How do you use social media as a tool ever since the inception of Instagram or Facebook or these things? How do you think that has helped you in passing on a good message?
I have always used social media as a tool to bring about social change. And I think it's a formidable tool to share stories and impact behavioral change through storytelling. Because I think when you are consistent and persistent in your actions, and your community is growing with the basic understanding of who you are, and they're bringing in more people and it's drawing in more people, then you know that there is an authenticity there which is at play. It's speaking a certain language. There are people connecting with it at a personal level. Because I don't think the one thing that I have always kind of steered away from is to tell a story that's not true to me.
Okay.
So either I'm sharing something that I'm actually doing, or I'm sharing something that has inspired me, or I'm telling you about somebody who is just phenomenal. So
true.
I think it's a combination of that can really inspire more people to be and become a part of that process that you're trying to bring about, the change in people.
True. The people also say that change starts at home.
Yeah.
So when you explain these to your little ones,
I don't explain anything.
So
they see me do stuff.
That's enough
And
for them to grasp.
that's the only way. Children learn by example.
Right.
You can't teach your children anything. They only watch you and they do what you're doing. So, I mean, if my 3-year-old son has, since the day he's learned to speak, said, "Thank you, Mama Earth, thank you, Farmer, and thank the person who's cooked his meal," he's done it because it's something that I've done with him.
True.
And encouraged him to do it. And he does it with great pride. He's 3 now. At some point, he'll discover my classmates and peers don't do it. So it's something that I'm doing. But hopefully by then, he would take such pride in it, which he does now.
Right.
And he will retain that pride and continue to do it through his life. It's a simple thing.
Very true.
But it's a value system that will, I guess, determine all his choices, all his choices of consumption, because he's understanding from a very early age that everything he eats, he drinks, he uses comes from the earth.
True that. How important is that right attitude to be when you're doing something? It's not that it's going to be like if you do it today, tomorrow you get the result, right?
No.
You need to be persistent and you need to have the right attitude as well. How important is to maintain that attitude as
it can be, honestly, it can be very, very terrifying, and it can be extremely anguishing to be in the climate movement, because we are surrounded by terrible news every day and our mental health is challenged on a daily basis. And I think that the one thing that I've always drawn great strength from is personal action. As long as you continue to do those very basic things that you've made a commitment towards, as long as I segregate my waste, as long as I'm refusing single-use plastics, as long as I am bringing consciousness into my consumerism, I feel like I'm being some part of the solution.
True.
And that really helps.
True. It is also challenging that, like you said, our mental health is also at stake when you read such things, when you're surrounded by such news. And on the other front, on the work front as well, there is a lot of negative vibes that you also get. What affects you more on a personal level? Is it the climate change or the environmental issues that affect you more, or is it things that you've been told on a profession?
No, I think people's opinions have never really shaken me, shaken my spirit, because I think I've worked very hard to be well in tune and sync with my truth. And I think when you know your truth and you speak your truth and you walk that path, others' ideas or perceptions of you or their opinion of you doesn't really shake you unless it's productive and it's constructive. I'm very happy to get a constructive feedback on something. If there's room for improvement on an acting job or the way I interpret an essay or part, I'm happy to take that. But so far it's been pretty positive most of the time, which is great. There is, of course, a certain set of people who have a certain idea of what is patriotic and what is nationalism, and there's strange opinions that are coming through, especially on social media. So if you stand for something and you are a part of a campaign, and some people can be extremely ridiculous.
So do you think fascism on social media also affects?
Fascism can be, so for me, when I read those fascist comments, it doesn't shake me. It actually makes me even more determined to continue doing the work that I'm doing.
True.
Because it's so important that we all learn to rise above our differences and recognize that we're working to build a better world, a more loving, a more peaceful, and a more balanced world.
Yeah, as much as you're a pioneer in environmental issues, you're also a pioneer when it comes to a professional front as well. You've come a long way. When it comes to things that have changed in the industry as well, ever since you started, what's that journey been like on the professional front, very strictly?
I think there are more women.
Okay.
In the film world. When I started working in cinema in the early 2000s on a film set, the maximum number of women we would have would be my hairdresser and me. It was a time where women were not even allowed to do makeup by the association. They had to fight to be allowed to do makeup. So I think it's become a more inclusive space. I feel like the fact that there are more women leading storytelling, whether it's as producers, executive producers, line producers, directors, writers, editors, musicians, it's really, really made the space and the process more inclusive. And it's brought a big change even to the kind of stories we are telling.
True. With Duck Duck and stuff and all, movies like Duck Duck, you've seen a lot many stories that talk about women and women-centric roles as well. Do you finally feel happy to see and to be a part of such movies?
Oh, absolutely. I feel validated. I feel vindicated. I think it's such an important time for women in Indian cinema, because if you had told me in my early 20s that I would get some of my best parts in my early 40s or post 40, I wouldn't have believed you. And then when Kafir happened, and then Dhak Dhak happened, and I got to be a part of storytelling that was really shifting the needle in the positive direction, but also kind of giving us just an opportunity to have a great time doing the work that we love to do. And then with that, do something that is so tangible and so meaningful in elevating the place of women in society.
Definitely. You know, this is one thing that I'm pretty sure you've been asked in every interview, but it'll be a huge injustice if I don't ask you this. What are we doing for RHTDM?
Well, it just got re-released.
Exactly.
It did really well. Maddie and I were blown away by the kind of videos we saw of people in the theatres. And then my husband said, we have to go to the theatre and watch the film. So we actually went. And I have personally experienced people singing with the songs as they were playing. And I was just sitting there thinking that, you know, I've always said that Rehna Tere Dil Mein is a gift that never stops giving. And I don't know what it is. Is it the music? Is it the lyrics? Is it just that nostalgia is a very powerful feeling? And I hope that, you know, if a sequel is ever made, the story does justice to the kind of love that the film has earned over the years.
But has this re-release and the reactions and the response forced you guys to just gather around and just at least discuss a sequel? Has that happened?
We have, you know, over the years we've been discussing it, but we've also been very, very clear that we will not even attempt a sequel unless the story is
strong enough.
Strong. It has to be.
That's so nice. What are the first reaction, you know, what was your first call to Maddie like at that point of time when you saw the kind of response?
He called me. He's like, are you seeing this? I was like, yeah, it's insane. It's just crazy. And then we did a live, which was and that also went kind of viral. It's just amazing.
You know, as much as we've loved these kind of movies as well, but I think the audience has also got a little too critical these days. It's my personal view as well. You know, as an artist, what do you think? Like, do we look at entertainment or do we look at stories that are being told on OTT and on screen? Do we look at it too critically these days?
No, I think the criticism is valid because the world is evolving. People's ideas are evolving, and our understanding of parity is improving, right? Gender parity. So because of that, that is shaping a lot of the conversations, and it's fine. It's healthy. It's important. It should happen.
Right.
But what we must always keep in perspective is the time when a story was told.
Right.
Right. Maddie actually brought up something very important with me. He said, you know, when we made Rehna Tere Dil Mein, there was no mobile phones. When our parents met each other, there was like a love marriage. How did they connect with each other? So I was like, yeah, actually, my dad used to show up to my mom's workplace and wait for her. And she would step out and notice that he's waiting. And it was her choice to strike a conversation with him. And then they got talking to each other. And then eventually a relationship blossomed. Now, if I showed that in the film, you could call it stalking. So it's interpretive.
True.
But I think what's important, therefore, is what is the intention of the person, and what he did wrong was pointed out to him. Right? Reena stands up for herself at some point in Rehna Tere Dil Mein, and she says, "You lied to me. You betrayed my trust, and I don't want to see you." So there is a consequence to some of the things that Maddie did, which people are very critical of.
True.
And rightfully so, because we have evolved. But at that time, where there were no mobile phones, life was very different. People found different ways to kind of reach out.
True. On the work front, is there anything that you can tell us that you're working on currently? What can we expect from you in the coming years or coming months?
Just more exciting stories. I'm actually working on something that I'm super stoked about. I start filming for that very soon. More series, more films. As a producer also, there's like really interesting work that's being developed, and I find myself in a sweet spot where I
Okay.
get to do what I really love
Wow.
and work with people who I really care and respect.
Right. Before I leave you and move on to a next segment, what has finally success, the word success, mean to you today? You know, back then when you started, that probably would have meant something different, and today it means something different, right? So, what would that? What's that definition of success? The change of the definition of success for you to be, you know, how's it?
I
been
think
like?
success for me is being able to say no
Okay,
to what makes me uncomfortable and what I don't want to do.
that wasn't the choice previously.
No, when you're younger, you don't have that. There's other drivers and other factors. There's a compulsion. You have to make that money. I think success is defined by the fact that you've been able to find your purpose,
Mhm.
and it gives you the strength to be able to say no to the things that don't fulfill your purpose anymore.
I understand.
And so, I guess success is to find your purpose.
Definitely. So these are your prominent roles that we have figured in your filmography so far, and we just want you to choose between whatever roles we're telling you. All
Okay.
right? Okay. Start with Reena Malhotra or Kiran Chaudhary.
Reena Malhotra.
Okay. Reena Malhotra or Muskan.
Reena Malhotra.
Okay. Reena Malhotra or Kaveri.
Reena Malhotra.
Okay. Reena Malhotra or Jia.
Jia.
Okay. Jia or Anjali Mohan.
Jia.
All right. Jia or Simran.
Simran.
Okay. Simran or Gayatri.
Simran.
Okay. Simran or Karishma.
Simran.
Okay. Simran or Shivani.
Shivani.
Okay. Shivani or Uzma.
Uzma.
Okay. So between Uzma and Reena Malhotra, who would it be?
Oh my God. That's 24 years of work.
Right.
I think there's a lot of Reena in Uzma.
There's a lot of Reena and Uzma.
Yeah, and there's a
Okay.
lot of Uzma in Reena.
Wow, that's really nice. On that note, thank you so much, Dia.
Thank
It was lovely
you.
talking to
Thank you.
Thank you so much.